What's up guys, Duke Sloth here, and this series is gonna deal with how to counter gods in specific items. Some things have to be said before I start the series. This is only gonna be in this video, not in every other one that follows after this one. First of all, many gods are countered by the same items, so sometimes it might get a bit repetitive, but this will help if you're looking for a specific god. For example, basically every ADC is countered by Height of the Nemean Lion to a certain extent. I'm gonna try and cover most of the counter items by naming actives. There are some exceptions, but generally an active is an item that every player on the team can get. Every player has at least one slot for an item, while some characters like hunters are usually dependent on very specific builds other than that and can't really afford to do so. A general disclaimer that has to be done here: these choices obviously reflect my opinion. I don't play every god to the extent that I can play him perfectly and that I know every single way to counter him, so I kind of want to encourage a little bit of discussion with this video as well. If you think that I'm completely wrong about how a certain god is countered best, then feel free to comment and tell me what you think would be better. I'm always willing to learn, and I'm just hoping to give some input to newer players that need a quick way to counter a god. But if that's not the best way, then why should they follow my advice when you know better? Additionally, just so this gets mentioned here, basically every character in the game is countered by wards to some extent, especially junglers, but map awareness gives you so much even when you're getting outboxed or whatsoever. It allows for better ganks, it allows for predicting ganks, and it will definitely improve your play regardless of what other items you have. We'll start with the gods with A right now. Only gonna do 10 in this episode. I think that should be enough, and I'll see how well that goes if the episodes have to be shorter or longer after this one. So enjoy the rest of the video.
Time to burn!
In terms of actives, the best choice against Agni at this point is Beats. Most of his damage comes from his combo with his stun, so if you can avoid the stun, you can avoid most of the damage and definitely survive against his burst. Therefore, Beats is now replacing Aegis, which used to be able to do that as well. Additionally, Agni lives off either very strong poke in lane or very high burst in team fights. So a combination of health and magic defense helps a ton against him, even on characters that usually don't build it. Bulwark of Hope comes to mind, simply because it has the extra effect that helps you against burst, and it has both the other stats you need.
My victory shall be sweeter than honey.
Unfortunately, strategies against AMC are very specific. Relying on items doesn't help too much against him, basically because there's no hard countering item to him. You can lower his attack speed with the curses and his healing, whichever curse you choose, but nothing really stops him. The thing about him that makes him so weak is his low mobility. Therefore, Fist of the Gods would be strong against him, but you can only build that on very specific characters. What also helps is Height of the Nemean Lion. Obviously, it lowers his boxing potential quite a lot, but in the end, he's one of those gods where items mean a lot less than teamwork. A good team with a decent amount of ganks will always be able to shut him down. Direct boxing against him in lane, even at this point, is really hard. The reason he's not chosen too much is simply because he can't escape from ganks, and that's how you effectively counter him more than with any item.
Warriors, to battle!
With Anhur being incredibly strong now, it's hard to counter him in one item, but if you want to do so, you should really check how well the Anhur plays. If it's a bad Anhur, he will simply use his ult to try and finish you off after a fight, not trying to stun you beforehand. In that case, you should go for Aegis, simply because you can just block most of the damage. If it's a good Anhur, he will pillar stun you and then ult you. This is a lot more problematic, because it can't be countered by Aegis. Aegis will not work when you're stunned. Therefore, in this case, you need to use beats and hopefully have an escape that gets you out. Additionally, as always with any hunter, Hide of the Nemean Lion is an option at some point. If you want to go full on risk and you're tanky enough, you can go for Shield of the Underworld as well, but I wouldn't recommend this in most situations. In terms of countering, Anubis is one of the simpler gods. At this point, the only item you really need is beads. Magical protection always helps, but you only need beads. The point is to know when to use them. Don't use the beads just when he wraps you. You can do that if you're absolutely sure he's gonna kill you with his standard abilities. In most situations, you should use your beads when he ults you. This allows you to get out of his main damage source. Afterwards, you can basically come back to lane and still kill him before his ultimate is back up. Anubis is an absolute glass cannon, and without his ult, he's got huge problems against most characters.
Know your enemy, know yourself, and victory will be assured. Unless you're fighting a dragon, of course.
As recently discussed, Ao Kuang is basically countering himself at the moment. If he should ever be returned to a viable state, the best item to counter him will always be beads, simply because you can block his ult with that. Followed by Aegis, because you can block a lot of his damage with this, and he is pretty weak without his burst. He relies on his burst to kill you right away or get you to the threshold. If that doesn't work because of Aegis, he has got a problem and has to get out of the fight.
Who will be my love today?
Aphrodite is probably one of the easiest gods to counter. Weakening Curse works excellent against her. It counters her healing, which she's very dependent on. It takes away her mobility, which is already quite low to begin with. If that's not enough, on top of that, you can get the usual anti-heal items like Pestilence, Brawler Speedstick or Divine Rune, depending on which class you're playing.
Another performance already. I guess they can't get enough of me.
Apollo's boxing capabilities are quite low at this point. One could use beats against him, but I don't think the main problem with him now is fighting him 1v1. What he can still do in a very excellent fashion is pushing towers and backdooring. Therefore, the active I would recommend against him is Teleport. Teleport allows you to defend the tower the very second he gets there, and while it might be on a longer cooldown than his ult in some situations, it will still prevent him from split pushing late game. You don't need everyone in your team to have Teleport either. 1 or 2 players, usually at least the solo laner, should be enough. If that's not enough, Hide of the Nemean Lion will help you fighting him as with any other ADC.
The brood is ready.
Arachne is incredibly strong in 1v1 situations. What she can do well is box you with her auto attacks and get out of the situation when it gets too dangerous, which it shouldn't be because she can heal herself up. Outside of her 3 and her ult, she doesn't have too much mobility. She doesn't have a leap, and her 3 requires her to walk on the web, slowing you down only if it touches you, and her ult is on a very low cooldown once it's used. So what I recommend is getting Weakening Curse in many situations, simply because it also stops her healing. This will force her to retreat in a fight more often than not. If that doesn't work, or you don't feel like getting that item, any kind of sprint is also very helpful against her.
No mercy! Heresy!
Ares is one of the most simple gods to counter. You need beats. And it's not that you could get them, they're mandatory. You need them against his ultimate. Ares forces a whole team to get beats. Except for when they got CC immunity on their ults or the likes. Other than that, you usually don't need any additional items, though the Mark of the Vanguard is very helpful against him early as a support because it lowers his damage quite a lot.
Let the hunt begin.
Artemis is the one ADC that always makes beats mandatory. Her ult allows her to kill you while you're stunned, dropping you into a trap right after the ult, so there's basically nothing you can do if you can't get out of the CC. So beats is by far the best choice here, simply because it gives you a short time span of CC immunity even after getting out of it, so you won't get trapped right away, while Magi's might help you get away and then still get trapped if it runs out too quick. If that's not enough, consider getting a Spirit Robe to reduce her damage, basically taking away a lot of her burst potential, because she usually uses all her abilities at once. As many of you wanted to know how to counter Bellona as well, I'll give you a quick overview of that. You obviously need Witchblade, you need beats, you need Weakening Curse, you probably should get Sprint as well if you have that third active slot. You might get some extra protections with Height of the Enemy and Lion. You might want to get Divine Rune just to lower healing. So it's really no problem countering her in a few items. It's just the easiest thing you can do. No problem at all. Is that a problem? That's it for the first episode. Hope you enjoyed it. If there's anything you'd like to see, something that I should change, just let me know in the comments below. Thank you guys so much for watching. Leave a like or a sub if you feel like it. If you don't, I don't mind. It's a sloth life after all. Duke Sloth, out.